Welcome back to the workshop of Wood Spun Round. This is Doug. It is so good to have you in the shop with me today. Got a piece of oak here. This is a piece of my oak dunnage, one of my last pieces. I'm about to run out of all this oak dunnage that I've collected a while back. We're going to turn a bowl. This is kind of an experimental piece. Not so much the turning of it, but the treatment of it. This oak is so super dry. It has a couple of cracks in it that I've already put some CA glue into. And this is going to be a recurring theme. I'm going to have to put a bit of CA into some of these cracks all the way through the process. But here we're just starting the roughing process, getting those corners turned down around and starting to get some shape on it. Here already, so you can see I've rounded the bottom half, but I've also opened up these cracks a bit more. So I've just gone past all of the CA that I put in earlier. So I'm just putting in some more, and I'll have to do this a couple of more times. This is the Parfex 3408 that I'm using. It's very thin, and it runs into those cracks very well. But I'm just getting down to a point where either I didn't put enough in to begin with, or maybe the wood absorbed some of it. But anyway, or it dried before it got any deeper. This is almost like some ring shank. It's not really ring shank, but it kind of acts like it from time to time. So I'm putting a little accelerator on it. I don't want it to sling out. It does anyway. I found some in my hair where it went up in the air and came back down. Didn't get on my face shield, but yeah, got in my hair just a little bit, just a few little small drops. I'm just checking there to see if it's dry, and it's getting close enough. But you see, I jumped out of the way. I have ruined more than one face shield by getting super glue on it, and it doesn't come off. So, getting out of the way. Getting closer to round here. In fact, I'm finishing taking off the flat spots here so that I can start getting the shape of this piece. Again, you're looking at the bottom. At the headstock side is what will be the top. So we're getting it ready so we can reverse it here in just a moment. Here's more CA. Some of these cracks were quite a bit deeper than what I thought they were to begin with. At first, I thought they were just kind of surface cracks, but they ran through this piece of wood pretty well. Pretty well getting my shape here. Haven't turned it around yet, but we're just cleaning it up, getting some shape before we turn it around. And even after I turn it around, I will make some corrections, some changes to the shape. Even after I start the sanding process, it's never too late to fix an element in your design. So even in the sanding process, I go back and fix a couple of small little minor things just to make it that much nicer. But just getting the curves kind of smoothed out, blended together where they need to be blended. Sharp transitions where they need the sharp transitions, all before I sand. So we're working on it just slowly but surely. Turning the speed down, so now it's time to start sanding. I'm not going to show you much of it. The process is to start with 80 grit, and I work up to 240 grit. On the outside here, I'll use my inertia sander. We'll also do some by hand. So there's just some transition points and some sharp edges that I want to keep crisp. And you can't do that with a rotating sander. So we'll do most of it, 90% of it or more, with the inertia sander. And this is one that I made, and so I can't give you a link or anything on where to get it, but using a magnetic bearing or magnetic ball bearing and a brass or bronze sleeve that the shaft, the metal shaft of this sanding mandrel just slides into. So the sanding is done on the outside, and we're going to turn it around and start working on the inside a bit. Get rid of the elbow stabber. Not only does it protect my elbow from being stabbed by the point of that live center, but it also gives me just that little bit more room for my hollowing tools. My tailstock is still in the way, but I was able to leave it on the lathe and not have to take it off, so was real happy about that. You remember I did put a tenon on there. I had it sized pretty well. Sometimes I don't get that just exactly right, but I sized this one real well right off the bat, so I'm real happy about that. Starting off with my Easy Wood Tools #1 hollower. This is the mid-size with the little small cutter, and this little cutter makes short work of the hollowing process. If you haven't used one yet, let me say this is one tool I can highly recommend above all the others. Get yourself a #1 hollower from Easy Wood Tools. They're available at Woodcraft, at Rockler, at just about anywhere you can find your turning tools, even available from Amazon. And if you really want to, you can go directly to Easy Wood Tools. Their website, you can actually get, it's the only place, the easywoodtools.com is the only place you can get the tools unhandled. If you don't like their handles that they put on these tools, go to the website and get them unhandled. It'd save you a couple dollars, but you have to turn your own handle that way. But that's what some people like, so feel free to do that. But make sure you get this mid-sized tool, so it takes the little small diameter cutter. Just checking thickness and how deep I am. You can see I've still got a pretty good bit of thickness there. And in the bottom, it was well over well over an inch to take out still. So I've still got some work to do. And I've not been working on this hollowing very long. I'm going to take it off. I found that crack that I've been working on the outside. It's also on the bottom of the inside. So I'm going to take the chucking all off of the lathe and put some glue down in that bottom crack so that this is even more solid than what it is. As it turns out, I probably did not need to do this. I cut most of this away, but I've had a couple of issues lately, and just kind of my way of thinking is better safe than sorry. CA glue is not cheap anywhere. There's no such thing as cheap CA glue or super glue, as whatever the terminology you like to use is. But I'd rather use glue if I'm going to fill a crack. I'd rather use all the glue that it needs or ask for and not really need it than to not put enough in and have the piece fall apart. I've had plenty of pieces fall apart here recently. And what I'm doing here, I'm just kind of letting it soak in, and I'm moving the bowl around to make sure the glue is in the crack and not just floating around on the surface. Even going to add a little more here. Okay, It dried. I gave it a couple minutes to dry on its own, and then I went ahead and used the accelerator on it. Then we get back to it. This is the finisher. This is the second tool that came out from Easy Wood Tools. First off was the rougher, the square cutter. This is the first round cutter. It's, I don't know, half an inch or so in diameter. And it does a nice job. Where the hollower eats out a whole lot of wood, it also leaves, if you're not paying real close attention from the very beginning, you can leave ridges and lumps on your surface. The finisher being larger, it takes those out a little easier. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking out some lumps and bumps that I found, could feel very easily without digging into the wood really. It's a finisher, so less aggressive, does a real nice job. Got through with all that. I took the time to get those lumps out as best I could, and now we're going to go through that sanding process again. 80 grit up to 240 grit. And on the inside, I usually use the power sander. This is a drill dedicated to sanding. It's not right angle, but it's more than 45 as well. If I had to guess, it's, I don't know, 75 degrees maybe, something along that nature, 70 degrees. It does a super job. It can be used on the outside, and one of those cracks that I filled with CA, the glue actually went through. So that's what I'm doing there, is just sanding off that surface, cleaning off that little bit of glue that came through one of the cracks. I guess I should tell you, I'm not too worried about the cracks other than they need to be glued because there's going to be some coloring done here, inside and out. One of the things I'm doing, and I told you earlier, this is a bit of an experimental piece, using a new color. And right here you see this particular color that I'm using is red. And as you see, it is a pretty vibrant red. These colors are all fairly vibrant. I'm real excited about using them. I used blue. There's a beautiful blue that I used on another piece. It's almost the same blue as my smock. It works really nicely. It's not an ink. I need to do a little more research and see what it's considered, whether it's a dye or a stain. It's not a stain. It's either a dye or a paint, one of the two. So anyway, just putting it on, I've got a small foot on the bottom side that I wanted to stay above that. And you can almost see there's a little rim on this. I wanted to stay below that. And so that's why I'm using the brush and not an airbrush or even a paper towel to apply it. But this is a square tip brush. And I'm just letting the lathe turn slowly so that I can be as precise as possible about especially the two edges. The rest of it, I wanted to be neat with it because I didn't want to slop it. So I'm just putting a few drops on a little plastic lid there that I can dip out of. That way I don't waste any. Then on the inside, this is iron acetate. I made it. I went to the store. I got a gallon of cleaning vinegar, not regular vinegar, but cleaning vinegar, and put that in a jar, and then added steel wool to it. And over just a few days, made this iron acetate solution. And you could see there, as I applied it, it immediately turned this oak black. That's because the oak has lots of tannins in it. And the two react together, the tannins and this iron acetate, to turn things black. But you got to be careful. Keep it off your bedways, off your tools, because it will cause your metal to rust almost immediately. Then once I'm through with that and the color has dried, the iron acetate has dried, I'm going to go through the axe finishing process. Here I'm adding the tung oil paste. I'm going to let that sit for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. And I cover the bowl completely, inside and out with this. And then I'll let it sit for 20 to 30 minutes. And I'm going to come back and buff it off before I use the abrasive paste. Now I'm not going to show you waxing it. Honestly, I don't know what happened, whether I forgot to push the record button or if I just lost that footage because it's electronic. This is all recorded on my phone, so here I'm just using the tung oil paste, and you'll see me putting on the abrasive paste here in a minute, but you won't see me putting the wax on just because it didn't get recorded or got lost or something. But anyway, no problem. Now it looks like I might be starting to buff. I'm really not. I've picked up a little more of the tung oil paste on my paper towel. I'm running it slowly just to make sure I've got a good coverage. I've not missed any, so that oil can soak into the wood and give it all the protection that it needs. Just starting to kind of buff that off a little bit. There's not a lot on the surface. Your goal here is to wipe off any of the excess. I really didn't have excess on there, so there wasn't much buffing to it. This is the abrasive paste I'm putting on now. Just like the tung oil paste before and the wax that'll come after, just making sure I've got a good even coverage before I begin to buff that off. Process with this is to put it on. No need to wait. Start with your lathe spinning at a moderately slow speed. I usually start between 2 and 250 RPMs using that same portion of the paper towel that I'm using to apply with. And when it starts feeling and sounding like the grit is breaking down a little bit, I'll speed it up just one notch on my controller there. Still using the dirty portion of the paper towel. And after 2 or 3 times of using that same area of the paper towel, every time I speed up, I'll start changing to a clean portion of the paper towel. After about 3 or 4 times of using the dirty portion, I'll start using a clean portion every time I turn it up to wipe it off. It's done most of its work. It'll finish up as I'm cleaning off all of the abrasive paste. I don't want that left on. We got stills coming up here, and I hope you enjoyed this turning. You can see there that red is very vibrant. I left that color of the natural oak, and inside is just, it's not black, but it is very, very dark, like ebony is. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. And I thank you for coming along with me. This is Doug. Hope you're able to spin them around.